What's up, guys? I hope everybody's doing well. Welcome to episode 16 of Sharpen Your Sword podcast. First, I want to say thank you guys to everybody that's been watching our podcast, sharing comments and likes. You guys make it possible for us to keep going and getting us out there. So I appreciate you guys, love you guys. And on today's episode, guys, we have a very special guest. This one, for me, is the most special episode that we have made or are making right now. And it's with Professor Gustavo Dantas, 6th-degree black belt under Master Andre Pederneiras. Professor has a wealth of knowledge in many walks of life, one of them being jiu-jitsu, okay? And the last couple of days, I've been watching him teach some privates in jiu-jitsu, and I'm always amazed by seeing black belts, but seeing the level of black belt that Professor is just another level. And that's what I like to see. And the good thing is, guys, he translates this to his other walks of life. Like I said, he has businesses and he has a nonprofit. And on top, that's like the cherry on top, Jiu-Jitsu Tribe. So this is the social project that he has, and I'm going to let him go into all of this on today's episode. So I hope you guys enjoy it. Professor, welcome to the show.
Yes, thank you for having me.
All right, Professor, I want to get started with talking about jiu-jitsu, okay? I'm new into jiu-jitsu compared to you, and as we see today, it's just a different level of jiu-jitsu. And the biggest question I want to ask is, when you started in Brazil with jiu-jitsu, how was the training and how was it? Everybody always talks about the intense training sessions in Brazil. It's a different level of Brazilian jiu-jitsu. It's a different environment. It's a different maybe attitude. Everything, the way we understood it was intense, you know. You go hard, like you said earlier, you just get thrown in, hey, swim with the sharks.
Yeah.
You know? How was your upbringing in jiu-jitsu?
So I started in 1989. So sometimes people have a wrong perception of jiu-jitsu. They say like, oh, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, everyone knows what jiu-jitsu is. Not at that point. It took a while of course, jiu-jitsu was around for a long time, but it wasn't something that everyone knew what jiu-jitsu was. It was a little bit of like, maybe we can call it a little underground sort of, you know? And I've been aware of jiu-jitsu since I was a kid. My dad was exposed to jiu-jitsu on one point of his life. I didn't grow up with him, but he used to show my brother, you know, like moves and stuff. So my brother used to say, like, when I start driving in Brazil, it's 18. So like, I'm going to start training. And then I always say, like, I'm going to train too, you know. So we never had an opportunity to do it before. So finally, when he started driving, he was 18, and then he always wanted to do. So he started before I did. And then I did a little judo before when I was 10, 11, having bad grades in school. And my mom, you know, kind of told me to stop and stuff. And then when I finally kind of started to get better in school, that was around the time my brother was training. So, and I really enjoyed judo, like the grappling. I really enjoyed. Probably if my mom let me do judo, maybe I wouldn't be doing jiu-jitsu. I probably kept doing judo just because I really liked the grappling in general, but that was the first time I've been exposed and I really enjoyed. And it was just a different time, and there's not really many schools around, especially the area that I'm from in Rio de Janeiro. Like, it was famous more like in the south side. The south side is places like Copacabana, Ipanema, like the famous like places. That's the south side of Rio, and I was in the north side, so that's kind of like not so good side. So where I was, it didn't really have many places. So when I started, it took me a while to get a little better. Basically, my first, and I was in a school. The guy was a super nice guy, but the school wasn't really like that good. And I was curious about competition. And back then, you got to remember, there's no internet. This guy's the only source of anything I have with jiu-jitsu, and no one really had interest in competing. But it was a small school, like a kind of ghetto like fitness gym with a little room for the jiu-jitsu. It's really bad. And they're like, maybe the most he ever had was like 15 students, maybe. You know, it was like super. It was just very small. until he decided, like I was just bugging him so much that asking about competing and bugging him. And then finally he decided, like, man, I'm going to do a tournament so this kid stopped bugging me. And then, so he invited, by that point, I think it was maybe 1992. I'm not completely sure. Somewhere around there. And he did a little tournament, and man, it was a disaster. Like it did really bad. But that moment was kind of like, okay, I need some better training. I need to really like, to improve. I cannot be where I'm at. So I was maybe like around 17. So my mom agreed to go to a place that would cost a little more, but now commute I need to take a bus and all that kind of stuff. But that was my beginning. From there, I trained with Professor Fernando Cruz. He's one of De La Riva's black belt. So when I started with him, he was a purple belt, and I was already blue. Well, I was wearing a blue belt. That wasn't a blue belt. I was wearing one, thinking that I was. And then right after he got his brown belt, and with 6 months with him, I learned so much. In 6 months, I felt like, because I asked him when I went there on the first day, I just got, destroyed, and even by white belts, so I was begging him like, dude, is it okay if I put a white belt? Is it okay? And he's like, no, like you'll be okay. And I wasn't really satisfied with the answer. But anyway, in 6 months, I felt like I became like a basic blue belt. You know what I mean? And I feel like the message behind this, especially for people who trains, sometimes you kind of question your coach that, am I ready? Should I go this level, that level? And sometimes, the other person has a completely different perspective of you because you're being hard on yourself. And then maybe I'm not as bad as I pictured that I was. You know what I mean? It's just because I went to a tournament, it was a disaster. And then, like, he saw something that I couldn't see, let's put it this way. So that's when I got exposed to competing. That's when I started. And the interesting thing in Brazil, because the UFC was in 1993, right? This is just my perception living in Rio around that time. My perception, what I noticed from seeing press and everything, 1991, there was the moment there was a shift in. When I say Brazil, I say because everything was so focused in Rio. Not that it didn't have in other places, but Rio was the place for jiu-jitsu. And they had a big event. It was a Vale Tudo event of jiu-jitsu against luta livre. Luta livre, it's like it's just a grappling, like freestyle, no-gi type. And back then in the 90s, there's a lot of 80s. They had a lot of rivalries, fights on the street, for like different groups and stuff like that. So when they have this event, it was jiu-jitsu against luta livre, and then a show in the biggest channel in Brazil called Globo. And I was even by my house, this event. I went there, couldn't get in. It was just packed. I couldn't go in, went back home, and they show later, not live, but they show like maybe a couple hours later, the fight, and jiu-jitsu won the 3 matches, right? Wow. It's all that on YouTube, by the way. It's fascinating. And then from there, jiu-jitsu just like had the boom. Kind of made it to global, which is like opened a lot of eyes, and a lot of young people like saying like, I want to be a part of this, and then start to pick up momentum. And then 93, that's when I feel like it really like everything clicked. Not just because of the UFC, because the UFC was a click more here in the US. In Brazil, that's when the CBJJ, which is the foundation of the IBJJF, was created. No, in 94, but 93, that was the very first Brazilian nationals that Andre Pederneiras actually promoted. That was big, and then because of that, Carlos Gracie started the CBJJ in 94. So around 91, 93, 94, that's when the competitive jiu-jitsu scene started to pick up. Unfortunately, jiu-jitsu did not have a good reputation in the 90s. Because of the fights, of like people going out or in clubs and beat up, and then someone's been training for 3 months, put a jiu-jitsu shirt, and then like the jiu-jitsu gang, you know what I mean? So it started like, it's just
like
especially it's just the way the press kind of puts you in a way. It's like judo is good for kids. Don't put a jiu-jitsu because jiu-jitsu can get your kid violent. So that was like the narrative that it was kind of going around. Of course, they did not help because a lot of the stuff happened. Not everyone did, but the few people did. And now next thing in the news, and the guy can train like 10 years of karate, but train 3 months of jiu-jitsu. The jiu-jitsu guy, like, what are you talking about, jiu-jitsu guy? So around that time, jiu-jitsu did not have a good reputation. So I felt like towards when we start having like, when the world's created 96, 97, there's a transition of like MMA start to become, the UFC start getting bigger. So start having a little bit more professionalism. So guys that wanted to just like, they want to fight, they want to compete, let's say. And then they fight on the street, fight other groups. And then when start having a platform to compete, either by Vale Tudo or Jiu-Jitsu, slowly that started to kind of like change, And I felt like it was the tradition of Jiu-Jitsu was always like defending the owner of Jiu-Jitsu. It's not what it is now, but back then, I mean, that's how how Jiu-Jitsu made it in UFC. It was like defending the owner of the art to show the world that Jiu-Jitsu is the most effective martial art or not. And now it's different. It has evolved into a sport. But back then, the mentality was very like territorial and highly ego-driven. When we gotta beat that team, we gotta this, and now that guy's from Luta Livre. Now you don't talk with them, So that was very. So I feel like at the moment that started to become more professionals, and like I said, have platforms, people compete. I felt like things start to calm down because now we have some of the best jiu-jitsu guys in Brazil to be like, yo, we can actually make a little money, man, with this. So I started like, why are you gonna fight in the street? Let's just try to set up. And they set up let's say an MMA event. So you challenging, and then you kind of like start having more, because in the 80s they didn't have that. So there was a lot of fights, like a lot of fights out. 90s you still have it. And then maybe like mid 90s that I think there was started to slow down. Still was a slow process. By 2000s, I think they're like, the professionalism was already like picking up. Of course not right now for people who train jiu-jitsu and want to pursue jiu-jitsu and have a business, man, you have great opportunities to be an entrepreneur as jiu-jitsu, like as a jiu-jitsu professional, but now I'm not saying competitor, just make a living around jiu-jitsu. But in the 90s, there's nothing like that. So when I decided that I want to make a living with jiu-jitsu about 16, 17 years old. So for my family, it was just kind of like, what is it talking about? Yeah. You know what I mean? How are we going to feed winning medals, But like the thing is, people have different perceptions of the meaning of the word success, right? Maybe something success for you means something, for you watching, maybe success means something else. And especially back then, the interpretation of my mom, her perspective of success is whatever she learned from my grandparents. You go to school and you go get a degree and you get a job and you get a pension, so all that stuff. So anything you do out of the norm or more entrepreneurial, it's a little kind of iffy. Especially, I believe that you can make a living with any area, but let's be honest, some areas are very complicated,
right?
More complicated than others. And back then, really, you think we'll never imagine the jiu-jitsu to get to this proportion, but people who trained back then and still involved, that was because of the passion that really man, I really want to keep doing this thing, and then somehow I'm going to make it. I don't know how, You know what I mean? And then eventually I got involved with teaching, and then my journey brought me to the U.S. But that was very different than the experience that people have right now, that maybe you have an intro class and it's a more friendly family environment. It's kind of different than how it was back then. There was everything. You go in, the place stinks, people don't wash their gis.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That was just the norm. And by the way, the beginning of jiu-jitsu in the U.S. is kind of like that too, because the Brazilians got here, not bringing just the jiu-jitsu, but the jiu-jitsu culture. Yeah. You know what I mean? Which is like, you kick ass, and then you throw them in, and then you figure it out, and then little by little, I think the entrepreneur mentality of the United States starts to dude, this is a business, y'all. You know what I mean? Yeah. You guys we're gonna beat up everyone, guys. I'm not gonna make any money, not gonna have any students, and settle down. So even in Brazil, It's very interesting how in U.S., like that development, especially jiu-jitsu got a lot of that's the feeling that I have. Taekwondo and karate, they did a great job with like their marketing and in business aspect, and jiu-jitsu started to implement things like that in business. And then now that's kind of hitting back to Brazil from here, and people be like, no, dude, you need a more structured class. You need maybe an intro class, toned down, more professionalism. Some people, they work, they're 40 years old, and I just want to get some rolls. I don't want to get murdered, like every night I'm going in. So it's definitely a different time, and it's crazy when I see and just being able to be training for 34 years, just be able to see, the whole dynamic of how jiu-jitsu has changed over the years.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting, man. So at a young age, you knew you were going to come to the United States, or that was your dream?
No, I knew I was going to make a living with jiu-jitsu. I didn't know it was going to be in the United States. I thought I was going to have to leave Rio. I knew that I was like, I never thought about that I would leave abroad, because I didn't even know, what do I do? How do I even leave the country? I had no idea what to do. But I knew that the way that jiu-jitsu was growing rapidly in Brazil, it was on my neighborhood that I started training. When I started training, there was two places. Actually, before I trained at this place, I trained to another one. That was a very common thing in Brazil is a fitness gym, and then they have a room for jiu-jitsu. Mm-hmm. So I started in a place, and then the coach had a falling out with the owner, and then the owner was like, I don't want to have jiu-jitsu here anymore. So I was there for 2 months, and I had to go to the other school that was available. By the time, this was like 1989, by like 1998, 1999, that neighborhood, man, I would have to say at least maybe 20 schools, at least. Like I'm saying, like in a fairly short amount of, area, and then start to spreading. And then I said, like, man, how are we going to make a living with a school in every corner?
Right.
So I thought I was going to leave the state. I thought I was going to go for a different state. I never thought I was going to go abroad. I had the interest in competing abroad, but I just knew that I want to make a living with jiu-jitsu.
Mm-hmm. So your story reminds me of a lot of like success stories, like an immigrant coming to the United States. What made you, or what incident, or what caused you to decide, hey, I'm going to the United States? And how did you make that leap? Because that's not something easy to leave your country, leave your home, your family, and just go somewhere else. Not speaking English probably, right? Sure.
I got very lucky with certain things. Well, one of the things that I like to share, especially when I do my podcast, either I'm interview or being interviewed, I like to talk about quotes. So if you think about some of your favorite quotes that maybe you're watching at home and thinking, what are some of your favorite quotes that you do your best to live congruently with that? So there's always some quotes that make sense to connect with. And mine is something along these words, not exactly there, but something along this was, if you're looking for a big opportunity, accept a big challenge. So every time that you in your life and then you thought about a big challenge that you accepted, most likely an opportunity present itself. Even if the outcome wasn't what he wanted, could be an opportunity to learn and grow, or it could be an opportunity that come as another challenge. Because you accept a challenge, is something you're like, oh, and then they offer another challenge, and then you take it, and then generate another one. So now we'll get into the challenge opportunity loop that I like to go. Like you accept a challenge, creates an opportunity. This opportunity can generate another challenge, that opportunity, and then get the ball rolling, get the flow going. And one of the, besides what, like jiu-jitsu, that's a challenge that everyone that is connected with jiu-jitsu, that's a big challenge you're accepting. And if you think about it, how many opportunities jiu-jitsu has presented to you just from like people that you met through jiu-jitsu, right? So just accepting, not everyone stick with jiu-jitsu, let's be honest, Right. So just the fact that you have jiu-jitsu in your life, it's going to bring opportunities. And so jiu-jitsu was one of them. And when I was maybe 16 or 17, I was curious about learning English. And I talked with my mom, just curious about, just because in Brazil we get hit with like everyone in the world, but get hit with like American movies, American music, So now I start getting curious. What are they talking about? What are they saying? Are they translating it properly? So I just got curious. And then my mom, by that point, she was working as a secretary. So she's always in contact with other secretaries from other businesses and stuff. And she knew a lady that was the secretary of the president of the name of the place is Cultura Inglesa, which is like an English as second language school. It was more like a British English. And so I talked with her. So like, well, let me see if we can get something. So she got in contact, and then she was able to hook me up with a scholarship so basically 3 hours a week, two classes of hour and a half. And it was a 7-year program. So they said, if you can keep the grades, and then you can keep going. So I took 7 years of those classes, but it's not like they didn't really push like speaking activities. So it's not like I was fluent. One thing that it kind of helped me as far as grammar, at least I could read in English, but I didn't really have like much practice, and still never really thinking about it. By the time I was like maybe like 4 years in, I was tired of it, man. I was sick of it because I was doing so many things. I was going to college. I was competing and doing things in different parts of town, catching bus here and there. And I told my mom, I'm like, Mom, I want to stop this thing. It's taking so much of my time. And then my mom said, like, Gustavo, one day you're going to need this English. We're like, no, I'm not. So one of the moms, listen to your mom, say like, I told you so, So when in 1997, there's a friend of mine, his name is Steve da Silva. So he's a Nova União black belt. He used to live in Las Vegas. There's one of a good friend of mine now, but back then, of course, I didn't know them. John Lewis, he fought in the UFC, old school, extreme challenge in like 95, 96, just old school guy. And he did a partnership with Andre. So they met each other, thinking Japan, and Andre was getting involved with Vale Tudo MMA back then. So they start to kind of go to Brazil to start training and stuff. So Steve went there. I ran into him in 1997. We have the Worlds in 97, so he went there to train. So I remember that he went there, and then I thought about, man, I should try to talk to him, and because no one spoke English back then. Andre was just kind of starting to, but he wasn't there all the time, but he was just starting to learn English. And then I remember back home, I went back home, and I'm just kind of having an internal battle argument of like, should I talk with him? And then my negative voice is telling me, you're going to embarrass yourself. You don't even know what are you going to do? Yeah. So I start getting like that stupid internal battle. And then the next day, like, man, I got to try. And then I just, after training, I went there to kind of ask like, hey, what's your name? And he just opened his eye, just surprised, like, oh my God, someone speaks English here, And then I just told him like, what? But so, like slow, So he spoke slowly, and I figured out again that my English was better than because that was the first time I actually was trying to talk with someone. Mm-hmm. I was probably maybe 5 years in, wow. Studying like twice a week or whatever. So we started talking. Some of my friends came in. They wanted to translate stuff, saying like, man, I didn't know we speak English. I'm like, I didn't know either, but we're figuring it out together here. So we became friends. In 1998, he went back to compete there again. And now this time we kept in contact, but like phone. So for me, we talked maybe in that year, maybe like between 97 and 98, maybe 2 or 3 times. And when you're learning a language, man, speaking on the phone, that's a hell of a challenge. You know what I mean? I'm like trying, because you're talking to someone slowly, but when you're on the phone, that's something else. So I offered him like, man, you can stay, a couple, because he wasn't going to stay as long as he did it from the year before. I said, hey, you can stay with my mom, my mom's place and stuff. So he did. And then he told me, hey, I live in Vegas. You're going to have a tournament in California. And that was 1998. And said like, man, we're going to have a big group going. Usually you have, so you can go. You can stay in Vegas. You can stay in my house. You ride with us, crash in a hotel with us, and compete and spend like some days there. And that's it. And right away, it put in my mind, like, I'm going. That's, I think maybe people, like, especially if you have an entrepreneurial DNA, that's, you don't think so much about, like, how. It's just like,
doing it.
Like, I didn't even know how, like, the gymnasium would look like, but I picture myself there, like, winning. That's automatically, that's what, like, I thought, and thinking, like, man, I'm going. And then I thought, and he asked me, like, what do you think? And then I told him, I'm going. He's like, really? I was like, yeah. And he's like, I know that it's tough to get a visa here in Brazil. I know that stuff. So do you have a visa? I said, I don't have a passport and I don't have the money. You know what I mean? But I'm going. And that was like somewhere about 6 weeks away, maybe 7. I think it was about 6 weeks away. So my mind was even before the tournament. I don't think it was it didn't interfere in anything in my tournament, but I was like in my mind, like, start spinning, okay, how I'm going to get there,
Yeah.
So by that point, I was already building relationship with sponsors and stuff like that. And it's a long story, but somehow I end up getting my visa, and then I got to go. And the cool thing is that Andre competed at this tournament too. They had some super fights, so he competed at this tournament too, so that was awesome. And so I had my first trip to the U.S., and I got here, and I'm just looking at things, and I'm like, wow, streets are clean. People stop at the light. This is, like, I can see myself living here. And then John talked to me like, hey, have you thought about moving to the U.S.? Like, not really, but, like, looks interesting. I just felt comfortable. You know what I mean? I'm surrounded by good people. And I just felt comfortable. I'm like, okay, I'm going to make it happen. So I was finishing college too. And 4 months later, I moved.
Wow, man. That's an awesome story. One thing that you did say is the guys with an entrepreneurial DNA is like, they don't ask like how. It's like, I'm going to do it, And somehow it finds a way to work out. I don't know what it is. I remember being 18. I'm nowhere near black belts. I aspire to be like you guys, But I remember I'm going to open an academy. That's going to be my passion. I didn't know how I'm going to do it. I was a white belt, But every time I talk to my professor, he would say, how? I don't know. I'm going to do it. And so I think the biggest point that a lot of people need to do is make the jump. Sometimes you need to make the jump. Don't sit there and just dig the hole and convince yourself not to do something. Because what if you never took that leap?
Yeah, and a very interesting thing about this is, so all this stuff happened. I said, I accept that big challenge that was to get my visa, which was a long process and like in a short amount of time, but there's a lot of headaches along the way. Raise the money to come. And then, so the tournament wasn't even the tournament. The first challenge was like, I need to get a visa just to get in. So for people who are listening or watching this, here in the U.S., you don't realize that people are coming here and it's really doing the proper way. Sometimes you're doing everything right and still no. I know a lot of people, of course, and it's just part of the process. And this friend of mine, because if you think about it, when he offered me this, you had basically two options. Either you say you accept that challenge, or you say, it's too close. I don't have the passport. I don't have the visa. I don't have the money. Next year, maybe we can plan better. But guess what? He never went back to Brazil since then. That was the last time he ever been to Brazil.
Wow.
So if I didn't accept that opportunity right there, maybe I wouldn't be here. You know what I mean? I know I wouldn't be here. I was saying like maybe I would come to the U.S. from a completely different route of the journey, And another quote that I like to share from Tony Robbins, it's moments of decision that your destiny is shaped. That that every one little decision that you did just to start training jiu-jitsu already kind of shift just a little bit. People that you're going to interact, people you're going to meet, just from accepting that challenge. So that leap is just really like feeling the fear and just doing it anyway. And because my thought process was, okay, I'd love to compete. At one point, I'd love to compete abroad. In order to compete, I need to have a passport. So in the worst case scenario, if they deny my visa, at least I got the first step. I got the passport, and if it's not meant to be right now, it's okay. Maybe in another time, if they deny, and then I'll do it. So since that happened, and then I'm like, okay, let's do it. And the thing is that John was incredible because he said that like I cannot give, because there was a small school. He was the first school in Vegas. That was the only school they had in Vegas back then. The only school in Las Vegas. And he said like I can pay you, but what I can do, like I can vouch like to sponsor for your visa. So you have your work visa. Okay. And then you're just gonna have to make it, like make it happen with that. So it's not like, so I sold my car. I came in with $2,700 and said like, you know what, time to start. And of course, now sometimes people come into my school, or maybe some of my students might be watching this, see a school, it's like, oh, it's a nice school or whatever, but they never see like the beginning, right? Yeah. Like the beginning, the beginning of the journey. But yeah, so he offered me the opportunity, and I came, and I even kind of lied to my mom and said like, oh yeah, I got a job offer. I'm like, that's great, my son's gonna teach jiu-jitsu, got a job offer. And I'm like, fuck. So and then I decided, I just saw like, man, I think the good thing, I was talking with my father-in-law yesterday, like I think it would help that I was so naive that I didn't know about, I just go there and then I just start doing it. If I knew how hard it's going to be, maybe I'd be like, I don't think I'm going. So it's just, I think that's the good thing of just being naive sometimes. It's like, okay, I'm going to go. And end up working out. But the interesting thing, so I did some different jobs, like painting, gardening, security, just construction, just like a bunch of stuff. But it comes again, the quote, if you're looking for a big opportunity, accept a big challenge. So I got here with about maybe 3 weeks to 4 weeks that I was in US. And by the way, 2,700, I thought I was rolling. I was like, man, coming in with $2,700. I know people came in with nothing, way less than I did, right? But I'm like, I'm good, and I had to look for a place to rent, and because I was in my friend's house for a little bit, and for like 10 days until I get situated, find a place. So I went there, and then they said like, okay, what's your social number? Like, what? And Social Security. I was like, what is Social Security? And I was like, I have no idea what that is. And they're like, and do you have credit? I like, credit? Like, I had nothing. I didn't know anything. That's a completely different culture. And then they said, you have to pay either 3 months in advance or someone needs to co-sign. And then right away, that's a little bit of the empathy comes in, because I felt like, man, the dude knows me, but like, yeah, we hung out a couple of times in Brazil. Like, I'm coming here, but it's not like I know this dude, I can vouch for him. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, I could be just bad news that I'm cool, but and so I just didn't want to put him in a position to co-sign for me for 1 year. It's like, this dude doesn't even have like a visa to stay. What if he goes back and I'm stuck with the thing? So I didn't want to even put him at that position to have to sign for me. So I said, I have to put an advance. So 3 months in advance back then was $2,200. And then I was like, okay, first 3 months, so I'm good with this. And then I had to put electricity and then phone. And then we need to put like, do you have credit? And say like, what? And I said like, well, we need to put a deposit, and the deposit's $250, so it's $2,500. So like, boom, that's it. The money's gone.
You're not rich.
Yeah. And I did one of the things that did help me was that I brought I think eight to 10 geese. I think, I don't remember, maybe about 8, because I knew that back then people really wanted geese from Brazil, right? They didn't have like many here, so I sold them like that. Yeah. So that gave me a little bit over $1,000, maybe. So that already, okay, I have this and I have money for food. And so that was kind of like the beginning. And then I saw people start giving me stuff. One guy was throwing his couch away. It was in front of the house to throw it away, so I got that. Mm-hmm. So I got bought some used tables, and I bought a used mattress, just kind of like just to start. And then kind of went from there. And a good quote too from Jim Rohn. I don't know if you're familiar with this. Yeah. If you put on YouTube Jim Rohn, there's so many incredible things. It talks about work full time when you live, and part time when you dream, and eventually with dedication, patience, and determination, that part time can become a full time. Mm-hmm. And when I got to Vegas, jiu-jitsu wasn't even a part time. I wasn't working with jiu-jitsu whatsoever. But again, just having the opportunity to be there and accepting the challenge. I was about 3 weeks in, 3 to 4. One of the guys that used to run the kids class wanted to take a break from teaching. He wanted to, I was a purple belt. He wanted to kind of spend more time with the family. And he had one person who did private class. And then John asked, do you want? I was like, of course. So I started, so that gave me a little bit of income. That was at the beginning. And then about 6 weeks later, they got in contact with them from a rec center saying in Henderson, and Henderson is like 20, 30 minutes away from Vegas, depending on where you're at, to start a jiu-jitsu program in a rec center. So twice a week, very little money, but again, that was the beginning for me to start like at least doing a little bit of the part-time of jiu-jitsu. Mm-hmm. And then basically jiu-jitsu was my part-time until 2005. And then 2005, that's when I kind of, again, I made a decision that starting now, I only work with what I want, with who I want. And so I wasn't, not that I'm rolling or anything, but I was like, I'm covered in my stuff, like I'm good, but I don't want to do stuff that I don't want anymore. I did what I had to do. Did house cleaning. House cleaning was my last job until I got to a point that, okay, I think I'm good. And they just go from there. So I think the moral of the story for a lot of people comes back to accepting the challenge. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Of like opportunities that sometimes present itself for you, and you're like, I don't know. And especially when you feel that anxiety coming up, you bet that's probably a good one. You know what I mean? Because if it doesn't bring any fear, maybe it's not as challenging, as you thought it would be. Like if you bring a little bit, like, just a little anxiety here. And because I accept that challenge, to even look at the sequence of challenges from accepting the challenge of learning a language, to learn jiu-jitsu, to compete in jiu-jitsu, because that's another challenge. Right. Compete internationally or in a higher level, to traveling abroad, to accept something that you don't have guaranteed, that I have a job. Right. And then hope that the right opportunity will present itself. Mm-hmm. And then it did, because I accept all the challenges, like, hey, you want to take over this class here? Like, sure. And then start to kind of take it. So I think it's very important for people to think about that, or like some of the challenges that sometimes you kind of get a little concerned, about it. Like, should I take this? I had an interview recently that I mentioned about this. I have one of the programs that I have online. It's called Inner Discovery for Outer Success. So it's mental skills training with personal development. And I saw like an analogy with that movie Castaway, that when his Tom Hanks in an island, and then he writes help, what I mean? And then like someone comes here, and I feel like many times in our lives, You can be just someone come here, help me.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunately the message is no one's coming to your rescue.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
coming to save you.
Yeah. So what is the message that I see with the movie is that he had to like build his little thing to try to go through the waves. It's gonna be awful, and then didn't work. He came down. He kept trying to put himself out there, because when you break through the waves, at one point the ocean is going to calm down.
Right.
It's not going to be storm forever. You know what I mean? There's always calms down at some point if you're able to hang there. And so when you're there, when things calm down, and then maybe a possible boat can be like, oh, dude, hey, come here. But if you don't get out of the island, how are people going to find you? You know what I mean? Yeah. You're just going to be sitting there waiting or coming on the boat like, no, not this boat. I want a different boat. You know, like, so you got to put yourself out there, go through a lot of like, especially as an entrepreneur, you're going to be swimming like, like swallowing water, like, oh my God. And then at one point you're like, okay, you know, things are calmed down. And then the right person, the right people, I feel like will come to your life. If you really put in the work, you try, and it's not like I had a mentor for that, you know, like that word entrepreneurship, it didn't even cross my mind. I'm just trying to survive and just live. Yeah. And then eventually one day I have my school, but I didn't really have anything like that. So my suggestion for people, if you feel that you're stuck in that island waiting for the help with a little sign, you know, start swimming. You know what I mean? Like, throw yourself out there, because, otherwise it's not going to help, and you're going to be we're going to die in the island complaining.
Right.
Powerful, powerful. How old were you when you came to America?
24. I think it was 24. Yeah, just turned 24.
So young. Your stories, I mean, it's a true testament to accepting a challenge, right? A lot of people see the success of entrepreneurs. They see, okay, the business already, they got the cars, they got the money, or they got the freedom, right? A lot of people now talk about freedom. Before, I mean, I'm still young, but I talked about the cars, the watches, and I didn't know the importance of freedom, right?
Absolutely.
And so a lot of guys see that, and they're like, well, you know, it fell in his lap, or his family or somebody helped him, but they didn't see the journey. They didn't see the part where you were freaking out. You know, you're trying to stay above water, and you had to decide, am I going to take the challenge or I'm not? So a lot of people think when they see success that they didn't have to go through that. Everybody has to go through accepting the challenge, right? The challenge is everybody has to feel that, the butterflies, the anxiety, what's going to happen. And if you don't take it, then you could possibly miss the opportunity. You know, and I like quotes, and one black belt said it. He said, the correct move at the wrong time is the wrong move. You know, so an opportunity may present itself, and if you don't decide to say, hey, I'm going to do it, I don't know how, but I'm going to do it, you may never see that opportunity again.
Absolutely.
And, you know, and that little opportunity may be your success, or the journey that you come to Brazil and look at your life now. You know, like you said, he never came back to Brazil after that. So where would you be?
Yeah.
You know? And after our private with you yesterday, I looked at Gio kind of on the sidelines, and I said, man, if it wasn't for jiu-jitsu, like jiu-jitsu gave me so much in life, I wouldn't have the opportunity to sit with, you know, a 6-degree black belt. That's a wealth of knowledge in jiu-jitsu and just in life, you know? My parents asked me, what are you going to do? I'm going to open up an academy. What? Like, you know, the natural reaction. What are you talking about? You're crazy. You don't know nothing about that. You know, stick to the regular, you know, business. Stay in the family business. Don't go out there. You know, you don't know how you're going to make a living. How you're going to raise a family teaching classes. You know, and now fast forward 10 years, we're sitting here together. You know, but it was the, oh my gosh, oh shit, what am I going to do? The freak out moment, you know, but it was like, I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to do it.
Yeah, and it's important for each person to kind of know yourself that entrepreneurship is not for everyone, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
You know, and Gary Vaynerchuk, he talks about having the entrepreneurial DNA and entrepreneurial tendencies. So entrepreneurial tendencies, it's like, it sounds cool. It would be cool to have a business and then I have my freedom. That's nice. And if it doesn't work, I'll just get back and I get a job. And when you have the DNA, it's just the way you're wired. You're going to do a business, you're going to break, you're going to do another one, you're going to break, you're going to do another one. You see so many super financially successful too, but like successful in general that broke, 2-3 business until they like, that's how they're wired. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So it's very important for people to kind of know themselves, and if they don't know, if you really don't know, like, I don't know what I want, at least start with what you don't want. Right. If it's something like, man, I don't want to be in an office 8 hours a day, and that's okay. For some people it's fine, for some people are not. I don't think I would be able to perform well if I'm sitting in an office from like whatever the time is, 8 to 5, 9 to 5, whatever that is. But I don't think I would do well. I wouldn't perform well. It's like I would do temporarily to survive, but eventually I would need my freedom, which is, I think it's important to be aligned with your values, whatever the values are. And mine just happened to be freedom of choice. I just didn't want people telling me what to do. So it wasn't, I told my mom since the beginning, it's like, because I wanted to decide to do physical education in college. She was like, you're not going to make any money, you're going to be a PE teacher. I was like, who's talking about money? I'm like, I'm not talking about money. Yeah. And especially in Brazil, the perception that I had, that many people had, they didn't have, of course they have, but like most of the jiu-jitsu places there, it was like a gym, a fitness gym. There is a room where the classes take place. So I thought that one day I was going to have a fitness gym with a jiu-jitsu room. Mm-hmm. That's what I thought, and of course the vision evolved, but the beginning, that's what I thought. So I said like, well, for you to work with the gym and stuff like that in Brazil, they are strict with this. You do need a physical education degree. So I said, well, if I want to do that, if I want to go to college, I want to go to something that is going to benefit me in some way. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? That is related to, for me to be able to have like a fitness gym or whatever. And of course, the knowledge that comes along with it. And I was able to get into a public school. So in Brazil, we have like an annual test that you get to try to get to a public school. And then you have, if you pass, it's one test with like basically everything that, that you have learned in your life or whatever, school related. And then I was able to get, so I studied for free. So my mom couldn't really like say anything like, I'm paying the college. And like, no, you're not paying anything. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like it's, I was able to study for free for 4 years. Like I was able to, thanks to her, to the education that she provided me. She, even though we started like very, very humble, she always made the effort for us to have access to good education. If we didn't have like fancy or whatever, but it's just like her main thing was the education. And that really paid off because for the physical education area, they had basically only per year back then was 240 spots. 120 for the first semester, 120 for the second. The first 120 people to get in the first semester, the other one to get in the second one. So every year, 240 people. So 10,000 people were going for that. So I was able to get in the first semester. So everything, all the investment that she made over the years, helped me with my education to be able to kind of be in the mix of like the first 120 people and study for free.
Wow. So that's very interesting. But you have a first witness to the journey of jiu-jitsu. For me, jiu-jitsu, like I said, gave me an input on life. It gave me a different view, telescope kind of, what I like to say. And it gave me different opportunities. But if it was from guys like you that brought it to the United States, you guys are the pioneers of jiu-jitsu, and you got to witness it firsthand. My professor started in the mid-'90s probably, and I remember him telling me when he wanted to learn jiu-jitsu, he was from a blue belt back then. Like that's like, I don't like to say this, but like black belt today, right? Because there was nobody here, And so You saw the jiu-jitsu in Brazil. You saw it here in the 90s, and now you see it now.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts on that, and where do you see it in 5 or 10 years? Because now I was at Pan Am's last week, and I'm looking at the juvenile 1 and 2, and I'm like, bro, what is this, you know?
Yeah, it's going to keep growing. That's something that I realized because since I was able to experience the pattern in Brazil of the growth of jiu-jitsu, I went from like no one knew what jiu-jitsu was in Brazil, not no one, but like basically, you know, it was to became like the thing, you know what I mean? Like everyone wants to try and all that kind of stuff. So I knew that with time it was going to grow. You know, it was going to grow. And in Arizona, for example, so I've been there. I moved there in 2000. If I have to guess in the whole state, I don't think we hit 10 schools. Maybe between 5 and 10. Megaton was the first one to land in Arizona. And then I know there's some people that train with him and then kind of open a school. So, but there's like, again, not even 10. So now fast forward to now, which is something, one of the businesses that I do is promoting tournaments. And now we have catalog basically in the state close to 160 schools.
Wow.
So in 10 years, it's going to be like bigger. People are going to continue trying, especially people want to live the dream, you know, and open a school. So it's going to get to a point that, you know, you have the message of like only the strong will survive, you know. So we're going to have a lot of business surviving, cool, and you're going to have a few people that only the strong will thrive.
Right.
Because it's so competitive. There's so many schools. There's so many options. Because, for example, if I had a student that would train with me for quite some time, and then he always drive 45 minutes, an hour away every day. He got kids, you know, and he loves jiu-jitsu. And then next thing, open a school like 5 minutes to his house.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And he's like, dude, I love your class. I love coming here, but like, it's not sustainable for me, for my kids. You know, like I put the time of just in traffic, 2 hours just to go train. You know what I mean? Of course, I have to understand that with so many options. Now it comes the job of like how well the owner of the school is going to have any school owners watching. Like how is your digital marketing? You know, how the structure of the class. Is the place clean? How, you know, is it convenient? So there are a lot of things. There's nothing to do how many titles you have. It doesn't matter anymore. You know, a lot of people when it came to do early from Brazil, a lot of like big champions, they kind of felt entitled in a way of like, wow, but I'm a world champion. You know what I mean? I should have a bunch of students. But guess what? You know, one thing that they didn't understand is that like people have been introduced still to jiu-jitsu. Do you think people know what IBJJF is? No. You know what I mean? They don't know. They're just gonna go school nearby.
Yeah.
There's this here. How are the reviews? Is it close by? Is the place nice? Is it a nice facility? Is it a friendly environment? There's nothing to do. And it's that, you know, eventually like a lot of friends of mine, like high level guys, they go in, they're like Hall of Fame people, like Hobson Moore. Yeah, the student's gonna go there. Hall of Fame, like who? Hall of Fame, what? What is a Hall of Fame? They don't know. They just know jiu-jitsu. You know what I mean? So it doesn't really matter. Like in the beginning, in Brazil, our mentality was, and I had this mentality too, because that was kind of like whatever is around. For you to have a successful school, you need to like build your name as a competitor, you know, and all that stuff for people to respect or whatever. And that is gone many, many years ago. Yeah. There's nothing to do with that. And by the way, there are very good coaches that never competed. You know what I mean? Or competed very, very little. You know what I mean? Again, comes down to the service, the facility. You know, so it's a lot more professional than what it was. It's not just about the kicking ass or whatever. It's all everything that represents the academy for a potential student to be introduced to jiu-jitsu, which is not easy for people to stay in jiu-jitsu, to the retention, that's a big issue for everyone because jiu-jitsu is not that easy and it's very frustrating. And so as tough as it is to bring people and keep people. You know, I have, and I don't even know how many people, how many thousands of people I've seen teaching, you know what I mean? And over, like, I've been teaching by myself since 1995. So imagine how many thousands of people I've seen along the way to come and go that sometimes is not for them or they're busy, get hit with life or whatever. But if you really want to have, like, in the future, in 10 years or whatever, it's going to keep growing. It's going to be more and more competitive. And I don't see any other sport, if you think about it, that just keeps going up. If you think about it, you know, like, for example, karate in the 80s or whatever was like the big, you know, with Bruce Lee or Jean-Claude or whatever. It just kind of like got big and then plateaued and boom, and you know, in jiu-jitsu, if you look into sports, because it's a sport that you can do for, like, you know, such a long time, like judo. Man, I love judo, but judo is brutal.
It's hard, man.
Dude,
getting a slam for an hour is
God.
tough.
You know, I have so much respect for judo, especially high level, dude. So much respect. And then you get a lot older, you're 60, you're like, man, it'd be like, dude, let's just go on the ground. You know, like, there's no more.
Let's start on the knees.
So jiu-jitsu is something that, you know, and especially the community aspect that brings to, you know, it makes people stay with the environment of the school. And so I see, you know what, interesting, I was talking once with Luca Tala. Luca, he was one of the founders of the Gracie magazine. So I don't think Gracie magazine, I think maybe they have a website now, but they used to have the actual magazine, started in Brazil. So one time he was talking about how, because Carlos Gracie Jr. is like one of the biggest visionary in jiu-jitsu history, right? And he was able to see something that no one saw, and to show the power, like how amazing of a visionary this guy is. In the mid-90s, he's starting the CBJJ, and then he told me that, Gustavo, I was in the meeting that he was saying, everyone's gonna know about jiu-jitsu. We're gonna have jiu-jitsu all over the world. We're gonna have multiple tournaments at the same time all over the world. And people are laughing at him, saying that this dude is crazy. Yeah, he is out of his mind. And there was never had a tournament out of Brazil, anything like that. So the dude was able to see all that. Yeah. So a lot of people criticize IBJJF for many reasons. I'm a big fan of the organization. Do I agree everything what the company does? No, it's not like, you know, sometimes you appreciate the work of a company, but you don't agree with every point of the company, and that's okay. But I'm a big fan because I saw where they started and they stuck with their vision. And regardless with all the dramas go up and down, or whatever, and the dude is still here, and they still putting 10,000 people on a tournament. How many sports can you say that you have a tournament with 10,000 people? I don't know.
But they come from everywhere.
That's crazy. Exactly, from different parts of the world, like, you know, the Jiu-Jitsu Con thing in Vegas. That's incredible. So sometimes we're like, oh, they just want to make money. Dude, that's a big company. Yeah. You know, you want to be in a world that you're an entrepreneur. Yeah, you're gonna count numbers. You know, you have employees. You have, you know what I mean. You have to pay bills, and people think that is like. There was a video when it was pretty funny going around with this guy making a joke like, I'm a jiu-jitsu guy, so I make tons of money. That means it's very simple. We just look how many students I have, multiply by the monthly dues, and boom, that's it. That's what I make. You know what I mean? There's no expenses. Yeah. You know, so what he has been able to build. So I'm a big fan, and a lot of people that sometimes end up. I mean, there's times to criticize. Sure, a business can be criticized. An organization can be criticized. That's okay. But what he has been able to do, like why I'm here today, it's because of my resume that I built with the IBJJF. I got an O1 visa they call from like extraordinary ability or whatever because of the results that I have from the IBJJF. So, you're not paying the guys. Maybe you're thinking a little too small.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because if you think big, first of all, I'm getting my resume. I was able to come here because of the tournaments. And now, you want to turn to make any money? Okay, you make $2,000, $5,000, $10,000. Okay, $10,000. $10,000 is gone like that.
Yeah.
But what are you going to do with your name? Like even with the ADCC. So people can criticize too, like, oh, it's $10,000. Oh, that's too little. I agree. You know, it's the same number since, since they started, but they invest a lot in the event, right? So the point is, you won the ADCC. What are you going to do with this accomplished that you got,
right.
Until the next ADCC or whatever, you're the current one, you're going to be teaching seminars, you can have your online platform, you know what I mean? There's so that's when the entrepreneurial DNA comes in. If you have especially those, like the big names, if you know what to do, there's some people that just going to be, I'm waiting for, just to get paid or just to get in with a tournament.
Right.
That's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And if it happens, maybe it's going to take a long time for you to get to that point.
Right.
But it's not. It's more like, what are you going to do with the reputation that you're building from the tournaments? And then I'm not saying that it doesn't matter to have a pro division, because I do pro divisions in my tournaments too. And it's a nice bonus and stuff, but it's not really that consistency. You never know when you're going to win, if you're going to get paid or not. So I think it's more of getting all that experience, all the exposure, and what are you going to do with it? You're going to teach seminars, you're going to do whatever. So there are many ways to work around, to make a living with your passion, in jiu-jitsu. There are many different ways. Like maybe you are a good competitor, a big time or whatever, but you got into the gi business and start making gis or a brand. But so you're living around your passion,
right?
You know what I mean? So, and that happens in so many different ways, different sports and stuff. For sure, it's like, for example, someone like, especially in Brazil, you wanted to be a soccer player, but you're not good and you're not going to make not even a third, you're just not going to make it, but you're obsessed with soccer. And then you like marketing, and maybe you want to be a doctor, and you want to be a doctor of a big club, or you want to be responsible, be the marketing department of a big club, and you live in around the passion, and you're always talking about soccer. So I believe that you can make, like I said, some routes are tougher than others, but I do believe that you can make a living with any area with a lot of creativity, and then kind of throwing yourself out there.
Right.
That's interesting. Do you see jiu-jitsu, like MMA, now people can make a living off of it? Do you see in the future there being athletes that can live off just competing in jiu-jitsu? Not necessarily business-wise, but just straight off competition.
Only, like many other sports, only the high tier, the main guys. Only, not just because what I'm saying is they're not relying just on the purse, but they have a sponsor who's backing. Like you're going to have a guy like Buchecha, you know what I mean? Like on the peak when he's competing. That's the guy, you know what I mean? He doesn't have to be like competing for, he already have his, you know what I mean? Like what he does, he has I think he does have like a platform, like online or whatever, but I'm saying like, we're talking about top of the top. And then a lot of people that it's going to be are in a lower tier, they complain that it's not going to happen.
Right.
Not everyone, even in the UFC, dude, it's a very small percentage of people who get paid in UFC. It's a very few. I'm talking about like legit money that are like, wow. Now we're talking about this guy getting hundreds of thousands to millions and stuff like that. It's a very small group. And in jiu-jitsu, it's going to be a very small group that's going to really make money just with competing. They can go into events that offer a lot of money or whatever. That is awesome. So currently, jiu-jitsu have some guys like that. For example, Eric Muniz. So he won a tournament in Brazil, the BJJ Stars, the pro. He lives in Brazil. The Grand Prix paid 200,000 reais, which is $40,000. 200,000 reais in Brazil. Dude, it's like you're getting paid $200,000 here, let's say. You know what I mean? That is very impressive. So even $40,000 for jiu-jitsu, like, oh, wow, $40,000, I'm not getting punched in the face. That's nice, you know? So a guy like that getting paid, like that, just the top tier that will be able to do it. So already there are more athletes that can live now. I think in the future it will be more, but they're not going to dominate hundreds of athletes getting paid that much. I don't see it. I think it's going to take a long time for this to happen.
I like what you said earlier, though, because I look at it from, I always tell people, it depends on the lens that you look through, right? What glasses you put on. You have abundance and you have scarcity. And you said you can still follow your passion and do it in a different way. Maybe you're not an athlete making all this money, but you maybe get into the gi business, right? Maybe you open an academy, which is not for everybody. That's another topic. Yeah. But you don't have to be a world champion to be successful in the academy. And growing up, I thought that. I'm not going to be successful. I didn't win gold medals at IBJJF Worlds and Pan Ams. It's not going to happen. And I always thought when there's a competitor, they're taking my money, right? Until I learned abundance, right? There's something out there. It's how you view it and how you see it and how you go after it. So you can make the money. The American dream is still there. I tell people it's faded away, right? But the American dream is still there. You can still find opportunities if you look for them and you work for them. And so you can get after it and make it in jiu-jitsu if you want to.
Look, the Mendes brothers.
Yeah.
They won, Rafa won 6 world titles and Gi 4. Did they get paid by any of that wins? Unless maybe they got bonus from sponsors or whatever, you know what I mean? But they didn't make that much money from winning that. Look what they built because of the reputation that they built. And there are many world champions in the past, some of the best guys that I've seen, that nowadays they struggle financially or business because sometimes that entitlement that, wow, but I'm a world champion. You know, I should be getting paid. I should be this and that. And I'm like, well, I ain't like that, dude. You know? So if these guys, they know how to really market their reputation, what they did, for sure, you can build incredible things. Like Marcelo Garcia, you know, he still has probably one of the biggest. He was one of the first ones to have a jiu-jitsu platform. Built an incredible name and reputation. Won worlds, didn't get paid a dime, and maybe if they had a little sponsor, gave him a little bonus, but not that much. And then won ADCC. Sure, got paid 10 grand. 10 grand, you know what I mean? It's nothing, but it's not a game changing, oh my God, I'm set, I got $10,000.
Yeah.
But because of that, open an opportunity for him to do instructional videos, you know, with mixed martial arts world or whatever, I forgot the name of the company, but regardless. And then it was a success, and they call him again, you know, and then next thing, everyone is DVDs, getting famous, all that stuff, and then he starts his platform, and then people awesome, how do I learn from this dude? And he wasn't competing anymore, so he's extremely smart, you know what I mean? Interesting story too, one of my best personal friends, Robson Moura, he's in a Hall of Fame of the IBJJF. For people who don't know, check him out, robsonmoura.com. He won 5 worlds as a black belt, okay, as an adult. So it's considered by many maybe one of the best ever as far as Federer, Rooster, you know, kind of he's in a high tier, with him, Bruno Malfacini, Caio Terra. They I put those guys right there, you know what I mean, on the same tier. So when he got away from jiu-jitsu to kind of start a journey of MMA. So he fought in Japan a few times and stuff. And then then he moved to the US. So he struggled a lot in the beginning. I would go with him to tournaments. So he would stay in Arizona with me to train. And then, because he wasn't He was just trying to kind of make it, you know. And then I remember we went to a tournament, and then he was competing, and then this dude, Brazilian guy, been living here in the US for a long time, turns to me and say like, dude, your student's very tough. I'm like what? Like, by the way, he's not my student. You know what I mean? It's more like the other way around. Yeah. And then like, you don't know who this dude is, you know? So I started telling him, I'm like, dude, you have to put yourself out there. You're going to have to accept the challenge of competing again. You know, because he won, but he wasn't like really people. I realized like people really didn't know him, and that's normal. He was, because you have generations every sport. You know, have a new generation. I have no idea. I can mention a bunch of world champions. You're going to be like, what? Who? You know, and he's one of like the biggest names of the '90s. You know, in beginning of 2000, and people had no clue who he was back in like 2006, and then he accepted the challenge of competing. So in 2007, he got back to fully competing. So he competed, I think, in 6 terms. So he won Pans, he won Worlds, he won Grapplers Quest, he won like everything that he competed, he won. Because of that, an opportunity to shoot instructional videos came up. So take a look, Google Fusion. And we did that program, we did together this project. So when we got this out and people like, oh my God, this is amazing. And then he shot another video, and then another video, you know what I mean? And then association, and then products, seminars, and then his academy, you know what I mean? Now he has like over 60, like maybe affiliates, you know, worldwide.
Wow.
And it does very well because he had to accept, he couldn't stay in his comfort zone of like, well, but I'm a 5-time world champion. You know, I should have a bunch, people should train with me. I'm like, people don't care, dude. Yeah. Like, no one cares, really. Who's gonna care? Maybe like, if you already train jiu-jitsu, you move into another state, so you're more familiar. Let me Google, let me take a look, who this guy trained under. Maybe you want to understand a little more. But the majority of people, they're white belts, they don't know.
Right.
So he started to basically rebuild his reputation here in the US. Because in Brazil, everyone knew him. But here, he was a new guy. He's coming here, like, who's the guy? And I have multiple times that I was with him in a tournament, someone said, like, dude, your student's very tough. Like, he's not my student. Thank you, it would be nice, but he's not my student. You know, so this is an example of accepting the challenge to compete again after being away from competing with the gi for 5 years. He goes back in 2007. He was going against guys. He wasn't the 3 other guys in the semifinal. They didn't even train jiu-jitsu when he won his first black belt title in '97. See what I'm saying? Wow. That's crazy.
Wow. Right?
So now, he's able to put himself out there, and then because of he accepted the challenge, opportunities start to present itself. He accepted the opportunities with challenges of, we're going to shoot a DVD, and he's still learning English. That's a big challenge for him, you know, so kept going, and then got a momentum, and now he got a school in Tampa, Florida, does a great job, and he deserves every little bit of the effort that he chose. So we come back to the same thing to everyone who's listening to, man. You want to make some change. You're looking for some opportunities. You want to make some changes. You better accept some challenges, man. You know, bigger the challenge, bigger the anxiety, but most likely bigger is going to be the payoff.
Right. And I'm going to pivot a little bit into one of your other businesses / podcasts. Is it BJJ Mental Podcast?
BJJ Mental Coach.
BJJ Mental Coach. And a lot of this, I'm sure you would agree, it goes back to mindset.
Absolutely.
Right? It's how you see things, how your mind is wired. Where do you think a lot of people lag? Like, where do they get stuck, or where in the mind is the wall that's blocking them from seeing the opportunity or making the jump?
I mean, it's tough to pick one thing, but like the root's going to be like personal development, you working on yourself, understanding yourself better, what you're looking for. But at the same time, it could be like who you're surrounded by. Mm-hmm. Jim Rohn talks about you're the average of the 5 people who hang out the most with. Sorry, but to hang out 5 losers, there's a good chance you're going to roll with them. You know what I mean? And you might end up being one of them.
Right.
You know, maybe you have a drinking problem and you want to stop drinking, but all your best 5 friends that you always with, they're always drinking too. It's not going to help the process. You know what I mean? But like, I think a lot is the lack of sometimes the self-awareness, understanding what you want and understanding your fears and anxieties, why you're not accepting this challenge. What are the fears that are holding you back from being your best self? Not only like in jiu-jitsu, for example, in life. And that's kind of the idea with the BJJ mental coach, was the combination of mental skills training with sports and personal development. And because one thing that jiu-jitsu competition kind of taught me too is, in jiu-jitsu teach you that like, you don't get what you want, the time that you want, the way you want, like, you know what I mean? Other people have goals and dreams too, you know? And I felt that with time, just putting yourself out in competition, dealing with the success, especially the failures, you know, learning from those lessons, I think there's a lot to it, to the competition. You know what I mean? It really help you. For me personally, it exposed my insecurities, my self-doubt, and because in the beginning, I wasn't aware of my negative self-talk. Are you good enough to it? Who makes you think that you can do this? So now everyone has internal battles. No one has free pass.
Right.
Some people have more intense battle than others, anxiety, depression, and so forth. You know, some people have more than others, but everyone's have to a certain degree. Some people handle that better than others. So a lot of the time is when you do have the mental battle, is to be able to realize that you are not your negative voice. You know, your negative voice, it's like the little roommate that is going to be with you for the rest of your life. That you're thinking about an idea, it's like, I'm going to start a podcast. And then your negative voice will say, you're going to start what? Like,
that happens.
Who makes you think who makes you think you can do a podcast? So now we start the battle that if you agree with the negative voice, that's it. That we wouldn't be sitting here.
Right.
So now we got in that battle, that everyday battle of dealing with, I like to call the dark passenger, the negative voice that brings all the fear, doubts, insecurities that are trying to protect you, you know, as far as like protecting from you not getting hurt, not physically, but emotionally. I don't want you to fail. Don't do that. Stay right here. Because if you do that, you're going to embarrass yourself, and you don't want to do that. Let's just stay here because it's safer, and you're not going to hurt yourself. So a lot of the times it's just learning how to deal with, and like everyone, at one point, you just don't have awareness at all of how much you're influenced by your negative voice, you know. And I wish I could say that I handle my negative voice amazingly, you know. And it's like, no, man, there's days that you're gonna, you know, maybe you're going to, because you're fighting with your negative voice every day. Every day is gonna be a little like, by the way, who makes you think you're doing that? And so there are days that you're going to get the best of it, the fight, and there are days that you're going to look at the end of the day like, man, I got my ass kicked today by my own negative voice. You know what I mean? So I wish I could tell you that I win my internal battles every day, but it's not the case for whatever reason, whatever that is. But our goal is try to become more self-aware of that. And that a lot of the things with a BJJ mental coach comes back to that of like, what's going on in your mind. So one of the questions I like to ask, a good one for people to reflect is, do you think about what you think about that? You know, so sometimes we don't stop to think about what we are thinking. And when you stop to think about what we're thinking, it's like, oh my God, we think a lot more negative thoughts than we can possibly, that I imagine. Right. You know, because it's so like, we're in the mode of from everything that is happening, and or you turn on TV or internet, or you're going to see negative information or negative people or our own negative self-thought. So it's just, you just bombard all day with negativity, you know. So the daily practice of trying to filter that so it doesn't consume you and doesn't affect you to accept a challenge in your life. Because if you're consistent, again, like a moment that if I let my, because when I said like, I'm going to the United States, That was right away the thing. So there's a book with the 5-second rule. I think it's something like that. Mel Robbins. She talks about that. Like in the first 5 seconds, you got 5 seconds until your negative voice kicks in. Yeah. You know what I mean? And like, oh yeah, I'm gonna do this. And yeah, it's gonna be great. And then in 5 seconds, like, yo, it's like he's taking a nap and he'll come like, what'd you say? Like, yeah, that's not gonna happen, dude. Don't do it. Yeah. You know. So just the first 5 seconds of like, you have that idea. That is like the genuine idea, and then comes a negative voice and start to like telling you this and that. So I think it's the biggest battle is the internal battle of being aware that you are not your voice. You know, you're the consciousness who is aware of that voice. So you don't have to really like accept what the voice is telling you. You know what I mean? So you need to learn how to like filter that. And I like to share this with, and for example, we call the 3 rational R's. The first rational one is just like the first point is self-awareness. Think about what you're thinking about. What exactly is coming through? So that first you need to realize, oh wow, I'm tripping, man. I'm just thinking about a bunch of negative things. And then the first step come in, the first R is the root. What is the root of the issue? Like why, you know, what makes you think this way? Like in jiu-jitsu, because I'm saying this because I went through this, like, oh, I'm a guard player, I'm not a top player, or I'm not a finisher, I'm a sweeper, or whatever. And then someone, maybe I basically put the negative self-label on me, or limiting myself. But sometimes we're like, where's the root of this? Well, because you used to compete, and then you go in super anxious, and you want to play guard, and then you have a little success with that. You didn't want to go out of your comfort zone and maybe play top, and then you just, it's not like God put you in the word and said, like, you're supposed to play bottom only. You can't play top. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's not like that. You know, like you just like, wait, why not? Why I cannot improve? Like I say, like I used to say that I wasn't good in history and geography. No, I was just lazy. I just didn't want to read. And it's not like I was built not to learn history or whatever. So first is finding the root, or like what exactly, why am I feeling this way? Why is this voice is telling me this? And the second one is doing that, reevaluating. Now the root is like, this is what's causing you reevaluating. And now the third one, you just need to reprogram basically, like, okay, how are we going to flip this? You know, so if I'm saying that I'm not a bottom player or whatever, and then it'd be like, no, man, I can improve. Why not? If I put the time, I can improve my passing game. It doesn't mean that I have to be this. Maybe my bottom game is better right now than my top, and that's okay. But it doesn't mean that I'm like, I'm not a top player. I don't pass guard well. Like, even if you try to improve, you're not gonna get better. You know, so now that's the time for you to really, when you think about like kind of reprogramming, and then like, wait. If this thought it's really holding me back, it's not gonna really help me. So you need to decide what direction you're gonna go at this point. You know, to the direction that is holding you back and pulling you away. You know, the negative, meaning sticking with the negative voice, or what you think that you know what the right route is. It's like this. We finish. So imagine you're in a car. Maybe you driving, and there's a loved one with you, and then we talk about it like, hey, I was listening to this podcast, and Gustavo was talking about self-awareness, like cool stuff, and then the passenger said like, oh, by the way, you got the emergency brake on. And then they're like, okay, no problem. So anyway, so self-awareness, interesting thing, like, dude, just let go, because, you know, we're going to get to our destination faster without damaging the car, you know, so there's no reason to do that. And they're like, yeah, no worries. So anyway, so what I'm saying is, before you didn't know the emergency brake was on. Now, if you want to drive with it, that's on you. So before, maybe you didn't realize some of the negative things you're telling yourself. Now you are, and you're going to stick with it. That's on you. There's no one to blame. If you want to keep driving with the emergency brake on, that's on you. So that having the self, it comes back to the self-awareness of realizing like, wait, what is going through my mind? And then you see, what is the root? reevaluate and be like, oh man, I'm kind of tripping. And then you reframe that to in a way that like, no, because I had with the reframing, the reprogramming, a good thing to do, it's like you've heard probably things are like people taking notes and writing things down. I've done that, a lot of that for like jiu-jitsu, you know. And when I start my process of improving myself, I would have notes like, I am a passer, I am a finisher, you know what I mean? I'll do like reminding me, because sometimes the negative voice will creep in like, no, this has not helped me this whole time. I have to stick with this here. And then you kind of like train yourself to be like thinking about those positive affirmations and just to be careful with the negative self-labels that you put in yourself of like, because anytime you say like, I'm not good at, I am like, we got to be very careful when we say that, because what kind of behavior are we imposing ourselves? We got to be super careful with little things that we say. We all do. Yeah. We all do. To a certain degree, some more than others, but we all do. And our job is to keep fighting the negative voice. And that's basically the idea of the BJJ mental coach, is to bring that kind of self-awareness to people through jiu-jitsu, but implementing those things in your life. Because if you're not performing to the best of your ability in competition because of your nerves, I always ask this for you guys or people listening, you know, like maybe at some point you've ever competed a lot, maybe you have a tournament that you laughed and you said like, dude, that was not me there. You know, yeah. I could do so much better than what I showed, but my nerves got the best of me and I couldn't move. Mm-hmm. Guess what? Something's holding you back. Now, maybe you kind of like realize that something is off and you need to investigate what is the root of this, why I'm feeling this way, you know, and then you start the process of overcoming that. So a lot of the stuff that I do, the talks when I do, or seminars with the BJJ mental coach, or either podcasts, or I have some courses online with the BJJ mental coach, and I wrote a book too about 10 years ago about that kind of stuff. So all that, the key word is self-awareness. Just be mindful, like, you know, what are you thinking about? You know, I think that's, if I have to say something, it's just the battle with your negative voice.
Okay. How important do you think is the mindset for success? You know, some people look at mindset like it's like machismo, or hey, that's a tough guy, but it's confident, or being aware of what you're doing, what you're telling yourself, right? And so I notice, and this is not new to nobody, but today's society, mm-hmm. we have a very negative mindset. Mm-hmm. We have a victim mindset, right? Mm-hmm. We have we deserve something mindset, like they owe us something mindset. It's not like I'm going to go get it, or mm-hmm. it's not a healthy mindset. So, and these are the people that are whining that they don't have XYZ, right? So how important is it to have that strong mindset to achieve your goals, your opportunities?
It's tough for you to say. Sometimes people say percentage, right? 90%. I don't know about percentage, but I would say that is a very high percentage, because especially being surrounded by so many good athletes over the years. I got involved with MMA for many years, being around like high-level MMA fighters, guys that reach the peak of the peak. And there's no way that you can do that without the proper mindset. It's right. Not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. It's the same in entrepreneurship. If you don't develop it like that positive, like the emotional resilience that you mm-hmm. need to have, right? And it's not just positive, because, you know, you're going to have negativity, you're going to deal with the battles, but it's more like the emotional resilience to kind of like, even when things are not going your way. And I don't know, I don't have an example that I can think of that when we talk about highest level of whatever, that's someone that did not have an incredible mindset. Mm-hmm. It doesn't come to my mind. And I'm not even saying like me, I'm very well aware that I did not reach my full potential because of my lack of mindset. Did I accomplish some cool things here and there? Sure. Did I reach my full potential? Absolutely not. And I'm aware of that. You know, it's just different moments of my life. I moved to the U.S. because I want to make a living with it. So I knew that I was going to sacrifice my competition journey, and that's okay. Mm-hmm. But when I'm talking about like I'm gonna get an extreme example. Jose Aldo. Maybe some of the listeners maybe know in MMA he was the champion UFC for like 10 years undefeated, right? Yeah. So a lot of people don't know, just saw maybe the end of the career or whatever. He's my favorite MMA fighter just because I've seen him close, being in corners with him and like exchange like plenty conversations with him, especially about mindset. That dude, it's very different. You know what I mean? Like every sport got a different one. Like Kobe, Jordan, they just wired differently. Like Aldo, like that dude is just wired differently. Because if you think about it, you know how hard it is for people to make to the UFC? Just make to the UFC. You know, like you already need to have like a strong mindset, like a good mindset to get there. And then now many people get there, stay for 2 fights and get cut. Because dealing with the emotions of being in a performance, big venue, whatever, and then people shut down, right? So sometimes, I've seen that many times, people weren't as emotionally ready as they thought they were until they got like, okay, dude, this is UFC. That's a different ball game. So it's incredible, people that get in the UFC and they build their career in the UFC. Right? They went there, they already have whatever how many fights, and then they stay with the company until the end. They got in the ranking of top 15, never fought for a title, maybe move in the ranks, but he built their career in the UFC and stayed. That's incredible accomplishment. Another thing is you actually fought for a title. Something else is to win a title. And something more ridiculous than that is to defend that title multiple times. Like Aldo, Anderson Silva, St. Pierre. You know, like, do you realize how different you need to be, your mindset needs to be for you to do that multiple times? There are very few individuals that will be able to do that. So when you talk about mindset, high level, the highest, dude, they're different. You know what I mean? They are different. For sure. And I know very few individuals like that, you know, very few that I know for that kind of like incredible discipline and emotional resilience, you know, to reach that kind of level. So if you tone down a little bit, maybe you're not like that much, but being a successful entrepreneur, you will have, you need your emotional resilience for sure. Otherwise, you know, the first maybe crisis that you have is going to crack, everything's going to fall apart, and that's it. So everything comes back, in my opinion, it comes back to mindset, for sure. To be able to keep motivated, but at the same time, pick yourself up when, you know, like things go down in a different way that you didn't expect. You know what I mean? So it comes down to the mindset. That's how I feel, though.
So you said being self-aware is starting point. That's it.
Yeah.
That's where you need to start. Is there any specific tools or maybe an idea or maybe, you know, exercises that you recommend for people to start going through this path of building a stronger mindset?
I feel that my beginning was with books, man, audiobooks. That's the best way to start, to be honest. You know, just Google whatever topic you feel, or like a big topic is like how to improve your self-esteem. You know what I mean? That's a good topic, how to become more self-confident or whatever, because that's going to bring you to some concepts, you know, become more self-aware. I have some of the stuff that I do with the BJJ mental coach. I did like a presentation a couple weeks ago, and I have an assessment. There's like 12, 13 questions. You just answer yes or no. And then things from like, do you worry about disappointing others when you compete? Do you have fear of making mistakes? So there's a lot of different patterns that, you know, like a lot of the kind of like the negative voice, things that, you know, say. And then just, so before the class, I give this to them. So I give them 5 minutes, just put a yes or no. Just that, it's already like a point for you to become more self-aware. To be like, oh man, I didn't realize I actually do that. I do have fear of disappointing others. Oh man, I do put negative self-labels on myself. I do bring outside issues to the mat. I am afraid of making mistakes. You know what I mean? Like, until you actually read and reflect, and then you see like, oh, wow, I never thought about that. Because it was the same with me. Only when I started studying personal development, especially kind of going more to a sport route with the mental skills training, when I got introduced to a similar assessment like that, that's when I stopped to think about what I was thinking about, meaning self-awareness. I started to notice like, oh, wow, okay, this is kind of holding me back. This is not helping me to perform to the best of my ability. And when I talk about performing to the best of your ability, I'm not talking about winning or losing, okay? It's about being you there, doing the best you can with the tools you have right now. That means business, that means jiu-jitsu. You know, so comes back to the self-awareness. So after we talk about, this will depend on the format of the class that I'm teaching, but sometimes it feels like a Q&A, and then I introduce, and then I talk a little bit about even topics like that, like the 3 rational R's, talk about self-awareness, and like, hey, now you kind of know that you do that. And I do the same analogy of the emergency brake. Like, now you know, maybe you didn't, that you actually, like, a lot of people say like, yeah, I never realized, but I do have fear of disappointing others. You know what I mean? And they're like, okay, that's okay. So you're going to start working on it. And books are a great way to start. Okay. I would say so. Especially, I don't have money, dude. There's so much free content, so much stuff like, on YouTube. You know, there's so many audio books that you can find there. There's so much amazing free content. You know what I mean?
Yeah. For me, biggest help was the entrepreneurship. Because it was failure after failure. I don't know what it was back then, right? It's just a vision, and I kept trying. So eventually your skin gets thick, is what we say, right? And jiu-jitsu. Because with jiu-jitsu comes ego, right? I was 18, and one thing I heard was, you know, like, if you tap, you never get a blue belt. That's one example, you know? Or you don't tap the pressure, you know? Or you need to be the tough guy in the class. You need to show people that you're good. And so at 18 years old, I was obviously trying to show people I'm good, right? And that's what kind of helped me build my mindset. When you're put in a bad position, somebody's mounted to you, you can't breathe. You got 250-pound guy, I'm 150 pounds, and I can't breathe. What do I do, right? Calming down and trying to be tough in the moment when you don't know anything. So jiu-jitsu has helped me a lot, and jiu-jitsu has given me a lot, and we use that as a tool today to make people mentally stronger. You know, that's what we do. Is physically you're going to get stronger. I always tell people, your jiu-jitsu is going to come. You're going to learn the triangle. You're going to learn the arm. You're going to learn the cool stuff. But most importantly, you're going to get mentally stronger training jiu-jitsu. Whether you like it or not, if you stick in it long enough, you will get mentally stronger. And I do know that you have a social project, Jiu-Jitsu Tribe. And you're spreading jiu-jitsu to poverty-stricken areas and kids. And can you tell us a little bit about Jiu-Jitsu Tribe?
So we started this process in 2010. So the idea was, I always liked the idea of, especially with jiu-jitsu in that way, like giving back. I know it's a cliche of like to give back, but it's true, because when I was in my journey, I'm hustling for sponsors, supporters, you know, and I hustle a lot with that. Many people that end up supporting me, and even if you think about it in your journeys, many times like people that barely knew you help you with a little bit, with a little thing. So I just felt that, man, again, the vision has evolved, right? Since the beginning, beginning of 2000, when I had this in mind, like I love to sponsor kids from those low-income areas and kind of helping their journey, and then eventually start to get evolve to like, how do I support social projects that already offer jiu-jitsu classes, they already do work, and I'm trying to support them somehow. So it started with that. So now 2024, Jiu-Jitsu Tribe, the mission is to inspire, impact, and improve lives utilizing jiu-jitsu as a personal social development tool, especially in low-income areas. Because, you just mentioned, like, how much jiu-jitsu brings, to your life. Imagine to kids that really don't have anything going on, dude.
Right.
In a low-income area that the parents cannot afford, and, so now we're basically interconnected with 3 areas. The first one is mental health. So that's one of the approaches that we have. We have a partnership in Phoenix with this behavior center called Resilient Health. We did a pilot in my school years ago that worked really well, which was getting some kids that already have issues, behavior issues, anxiety disorder, and depression, so forth. So as an alternative therapy to help their program. So they already have like a tutor, they have someone that works with them. And jiu-jitsu just being an extra activity. It's not jiu-jitsu cures all, you know what I mean?
Right.
But it's nice to have someone that is that can be with the kids. So we did probably started like maybe up to like 20 kids at first. And what was the challenge? Many times you're going to talk with a behavior center, and then they're going to think about, first of all, they don't know what jiu-jitsu is for the most part, and they're going to think about liability, or they're going to get hurt, or it's violent. They don't know. So I got lucky that one of her name is Lori. She works at Resilient Health, and her brother is Heath. He's the tournament director, one of my black belts, and tournament director for the AZBJJL. So I already have this connection to have someone to vouch for us about jiu-jitsu. You know what I mean? So at first, when she mentioned, I think they're kind of like, I don't know. But then I was like, it's not going to cost you anything, right? So after we did, the first like few months, and then they started getting the feedback from the parents, they were very excited about like, oh, wow, we're down with that, okay. So the problem is distance logistics was an issue because they're in Phoenix and a little bit away from the academy. So I started to use the connection from the AZBJJL. So I said, okay, you got a kid. You tell what neighborhood they're at, and then we contact the school as close as possible to see if they want to sponsor one child for 6 months. They do for 3 months, kind of reevaluate, see if they if they're like behaving well, or they're enjoying, and if go 3 more months. And after the 6 months, you decide, do they want to continue? Do they want to keep sponsoring? Whatever that is, and then keep going. So we have kids that continue, some who stop. But that's cool because, man, every academy, come on, one person. You know what I mean? And you can just give with just kind of loan the gi, and then if they stop training, get the gi back or whatever. So it doesn't really hurt a business.
Right.
So that is the approach that you're using. It would be awesome. And the cool thing for our organization, it doesn't cost us anything because we're just a connector, of like, here's the prospect, the child. What does the academy want to do with? Hook them up, So it would be nice to spread this in the country to have, but now you need the behavior centers that want to get involved with this, and academies that want to be involved. So right now, our only place is in Arizona. That's the only kind of like place that we're currently doing that, but we got to start somewhere,
Right.
So right now, just Arizona. The second part is social project sustainability. And one of the biggest challenges of any social project, any nonprofit, is sustainability, because we have in Brazil, especially in Brazil, in the U.S., there are very few social projects. Very few. I don't think I can count in one hand. Wow. But in Brazil, we have thousands.
Really?
Thousands, literally. Brazil is a big country, and there's I'm not kidding. That's thousands.
Wow.
And then what happened is, before I used to help people, we used to help with like competition and stuff like that. And I noticed it's cool, but they are always like, they got so excited about competing, but what about the sustainability? What about the coach? Mm-hmm. Coach needs to pay bills. He's not getting paid.
Right.
You know what I mean? So next thing, a project that I used to help, and then they're like, oh no, we had to stop. I had to get a second job, and then I don't teach the classes anymore. So we started working on like, dude, no more money to tournaments and stuff. It's just sustainability. Try to get a way to help the coaches if possible. So we do different types of sustainability, from helping construction in a place, from new mats, wall mats, gis. We have a partnership with Browse and Browse Foundation. So last year we released 2 gis, and every gi purchase generates a brand new gi, custom made, not cheap gi, high quality Browse gi, custom made gi for the project. So we did 150 custom made gis last year.
Wow.
Because of that. So it's very, very cool concept that you know that the gi that you bought, some kid is wearing a gi because you bought that gi. You know what I mean? And it's not just a used gi. Because at first people are, the used gi, like, no, I have done that. We want to give like the experience of having a brand new gi.
That's
you know what I mean?
big,
That's very different.
Yeah.
You know? And so we did that, and we have our program called Adopt a Social Project program, which is for a program this one it's to help the coach. Or if it's not the coach, it's the coach who wants to put in a social project. He does whatever he wants with the money. But that will be, because those guys are extremely humble. So ideal, I'd say, like, man, this should be for you and your family so you can keep serving people. That's the idea, because next thing they're going to stop. You know, so we have company. We have one project in Brazil that I've been there. They do an incredible. It's an incredible institute. Jiu-jitsu is just one activity. I know the leader, and then she got in contact with me. Incredible social worker. Said, "Hey, Gustavo, I'm thinking about doing adding jiu-jitsu. What do you think?" I was like, "Let's do it." So we started like a campaign, you know, with the seminars and the stuff that I do, and we were able to raise close to $12,000. So able to do a construction to get the place ready. We put mats, and the coach actually we got him 40 custom made gis, and the coach receives actually a little money per month. The 5-to-1 ratio, you know, $200 goes a long way there. You know what I mean? So for this program, there's a friend of mine, a student of mine, Greg. He owns Control Physical Therapy in Scottsdale, Arizona. So they sponsor this program, you know. Wow. So they got everything going, and we had we do promote tournaments to Copa Jiu-Jitsu Tribe twice a year in Brazil, dedicated to kids from Social Project. So it's an incredible experience that you have to give to them, and this institute, they took for the first time in July, they took their first competitors, because they started the program from zero. So they're able to, like, I think it took like 6 months, and then they took their first team there.
Wow.
And then for the kids, it's just incredible. You know what I mean? They never get to leave town, and they go stuff like that. So all of that is part of the sustainability. And the third one is the Jiu-Jitsu Tribe Institute that is in the south of Brazil. Rio Grande do Sul is the city, Nova Hartz. And we have, so Jiu-Jitsu Tribe pays to rent a space where they have the Jiu-Jitsu classes. And you just actually took over a house where we're going to start having classes like a personal development center. Basically, that's what we're doing. So we just started with this in January, though. So our biggest challenge is fundraising. No doubt. Yeah, always. You know, there's so much that I can do, but I try to do some seminars with the fundraisers and get people involved. So anyone that wants to get involved in the program, wants to support in some way, just can get in contact with me. But the idea is to keep growing and helping other projects, because I have the opportunity to travel and see it. The few programs that I have in the U.S., we support them, you know, with whatever we can. We'll have support at some point. But it just happens that in Brazil, there's a lot more, you know, that needed. But here we do what we can. There's an incredible program. It happens to be in Arizona, Tucson, Arizona, Higher Ground. I just replaced my mats at my school, and we gave all the mats to them, so they got some mats. Because they're as far as I know, they're the first program to implement jiu-jitsu in a school district in Tucson and having part of PE program.
That's big, man.
It's huge. This guy Jansen, he does an incredible job, and it happens to be in Arizona. So we do sponsor like kids to compete in our tournaments, have done connections to have gis to them and stuff like that. So we do what we can.
All right. So everybody hears the benefits of martial arts, this and that for kids. What are the biggest benefits of the correlation you've seen with jiu-jitsu and the kids? Where do you see it connect and make them stronger and more confident, you know?
I feel that we talked earlier about the emotional resilience. It's a big one, but it depends too, like, because we can hit different angles with this question. Okay, because now in Brazil, a lot of the social projects that we go to, all of them, basically, they have competitors. And in their mind, they see a lot of kids from previous social projects. They're like, man, they're their inspiration. That now they live abroad or they have academy and they work from a social project. And now they see their way. And so that's why I said it depends how we're looking. In Brazil, for many of them, that's their ticket out. You know what I mean?
It's competition.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there's not the only one, of course.
Right.
But just everything that comes along, you know, the lessons that you learn with jiu-jitsu. Because jiu-jitsu is a personal development tool, and you don't need to compete to get the benefits of jiu-jitsu. This is a fact, right? Everyone that is there, we're talking about some of the lessons that you learn. Like you said, like you're being smashed. It's like learning, that's stuff that I talk about even with my beginners class, that learning how to feel comfortable in uncomfortable situations. You know, someone's in your side mount, you freaking out and just, oh my God, and panic is not gonna help you. It's about problem solving. Like, okay, I'm here, let's not make it worse. Breathe. Okay, how do I get out of there? A lot of friends of mine, like we talked about, like during COVID, there was like, you had to use the jiu-jitsu mindset. Like, kind of it is what it is.
Yeah.
Freaking out right now is not gonna solve.
Right.
Breathe. Okay, how are we gonna solve this here? How are we gonna work our way back? So those lessons, because I always joke around with my especially my beginners, and I tell them, like, do you remember a time in your life that you had such a tough situation that you freaked out and panicked and everything worked out great? You know, like, usually it doesn't work too well. Like, you need to, like, calm down, breathe. You're gonna side them out, keep your elbows in, you know, stay calm. You're gonna work your way back. So those little lessons, you know what I mean, of, this is just one example, but there's so many examples that you can use that is for adults, for kids, for whatever. And now the competition, I like to say that it's a way to amplify the power of this tool, because everything that you're doing in the academy, you're going to do in a public place, in a tournament. The only difference now, there's the mental and emotional aspect of expectations. People are watching, and if I win and I lose, and now you have the extra gain of the power of this tool. Like you said, you don't need to compete, okay? But if you do, it's a bonus for your personal development. If you think about it, and I think people that have maybe practiced jiu-jitsu for longer time, I think can maybe resonate with the message a little better. And especially if someone's listening, maybe you're a higher belt and you have competed multiple times. If you think about where you're at in your life, in your journey, right now as we speak, if you have never competed before, you still have great growth from jiu-jitsu, right?
Yeah.
Huge growth from all kinds of angles that we can hit, right? But now, add the competition on top of it. Do you think that you got more from this tool?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, especially mentally, emotionally speaking.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? So that is the plus of the competition. You don't have to. So for a lot of those kids, that is the plus. That is the competition, is the extra. I'm working towards something. You know what I mean? I'm learning how to deal, because it taught me as a young teenager exactly the lesson. That's the biggest lesson I learned. You don't get what you want anytime you want, the way you want. Other people want stuff too, and your time will come if you keep doing it. So, I lost, what? It's not your time, dude. It was someone else's time. So just having that for a lot of those kids, that, you know, being humble to understand, like, you don't win every tournament that you want just because, you know, like, everyone has lost at some point.
Right.
At some point. You know, you're not gonna get every job that you apply for. You're not gonna maybe get all the clients, every client that you have in your business. So you just learn how to deal with with things like that in life, success, failure. So many lessons. So for those kids, we do sponsor trips from the institute, meaning a lot of them have never they never left their city. So for them to for us to get a trip that even if it's like 3-4 hours away, and they go to a hotel for the first time, and they actually have good meals, or like our area there is actually a big problem with hunger. So we take care of them like they're like, hey, this is like a kind of pro, but it's not pro, but like a competitor experience. You're gonna go in, because usually if they get to go, they leave early, they hit the road, they go there, they stay all day without eating, and then they come back. You know what I mean? So we go the day before, they hang out, they stay there, and then they wake up, and then there's a nice breakfast and stuff, and they go compete, and they go eat after. And so that's a completely different experience. Yeah. So as they do that, they want more. They want to go more. I want to go again. Because they want the experience. It's not about the competing, but like that was awesome. I went to a hotel. I stayed in a hotel. That's a big deal. Yeah. So now imagine an international student that, international kid that we go, and then it happens all the time. Every year, like at PANS, probably there's, a lot of people from social projects, some that each one make it their own, finding their way to get sponsored, to raise money, to do whatever, to travel. And for them, when you just have, like, you live in the ghetto, surrounded by violence, crime, and then you come to a different country and you see different cultures, and you're like, oh my, this is incredible. Mm-hmm. They see like there's so much more in life than just what I have. Right. So that automatically, it's a massive shift. And I've witnessed many of them. It's game changing. Even if they don't pursue jiu-jitsu, they know how, like, they know that they can accomplish a goal. They can set a goal. They want to go to college. They want to go get a job. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. They start thinking, because it's so easy to get caught into crime and drug dealing and stuff. It's very tempting in Brazil. You don't have to do nothing. You don't have to carry anything. Just whistle to let you know, like, the cops are coming or something. You get paid more than mom and dad together. It's a hell of a deal. Right. You know what I mean? So it's very tempting. So jiu-jitsu helps in all the time. In our institute, we have saved a lot of kids, but we have lost them too. We have lost kids that already actually died, from the kid from getting involved with crime. This program, the guy who runs the class, his name is Leo Gonzaga. He's been doing this work for 10 years. So from everyone that I met traveling through Brazil, this is the guy that I chose, like, this dude is different. He doesn't just run because there's different layers. Like, he's not just runs a project. He's a community leader. That's a different type of person. You know what I mean? He's not just concerned about my project. He's worried about the community here, there. You know what I mean? He's there for the community. Yeah. Those guys are the unicorns. They're hard to find. So when I found him a couple of years ago, we start the process, helping and all that stuff. And then this year, officially, last year we started. So the Institute officially has been going on since the beginning of 2023. You were already supporting them before, but when they started using Jiu-Jitsu Tribe Institute, that was, been a little bit over a year. So, man, what Jiu-Jitsu can really do for kids, I know it's different reality for kids here in U.S. per se. It's a very different, but a lot of those lessons is still there. The humility, the calm down, dude. Hey, calm down. Even though it's an individual sport, you do have a team mentality as well. Because you do need your training partner. You need to take care of your training partner. You hurt your training partner. Now you don't have someone to practice with. So there's so many incredible lessons from it. Mm-hmm. And then when you talk about kids that really, come from low income area, that is such a game changer. Such a game changer.
Oh yeah. That's a very good thing that you got going on, man. Not everybody wants to make the time, especially with the busy life, entrepreneur, So it's good to see that, both of us know, and you see it more than anybody probably, is how important it is to give back to the community, how important it is to give back to the kids. But in Brazil, I'm assuming there's a lot of these kids. Mm-hmm. How do you pull them out of these bad communities? How do you get them connected with the institute? How do you keep them coming, right? How do you connect them to this professor, this coach, and keep that connection where the kid wants to keep training jiu-jitsu? You know, how do you keep up with them?
I've been in many social projects. So I'm talking about the institute, that it's in a small rural area of a town of 20,000 people. Okay, so rural area, a lot of issues with the hunger and unfortunately child prostitution, with parents knowing about. Okay,
wow.
With parents knowing about, and that is rough.
Yeah.
So the stories that I hear, that give me goosebumps just to think about, because they're awful. So that is like what basically we're competing against, because the parents are going to see like jiu-jitsu. I mean, like, we need money. Yeah. What are you talking about jiu-jitsu? So a lot of the parents, they don't even understand that is like an opportunity for them to like, man, this can actually, make a difference in your life. So there's so much that you can do. And again, distractions from crime, from drug dealing, that they dominate the area. And there's so much that we can really do. Literally, there's so much you can do. People know about the institute, kids come and go. And then he stay on it like super strict with them, and no messing around or like doing the stuff outside. Like, no, you're here with us. Okay, this is serious, and then we try to present the opportunities, but just officially as the name Jiu-Jitsu Tribe since January last year, we have lost people already, yeah, for sure, to crime, to crime and to child prostitution. Yeah, it's just a different ball game, man. When you go like South America, Central America, I don't know other parts, but that's my experience is more towards that. That is brutal. Mm-hmm. So Jiu-Jitsu helps to minimize the damage, but with just a small little group that will have like 70 students or something there. There's so much you can do. Like he puts the workout, and little by little been getting more people. But in other areas, it's still always going to be, if people want to learn a little bit more, if you go to YouTube and go Jiu-Jitsu Tribe, I shot a few documentaries of like some of the visits, talking with people about what's going on. And some of them were like with different topics. For example, one topic was about mental health. So it was everything related to the improvement of kids that were about to commit suicide, and Jiu-Jitsu really help and stuff like that. And have one that is just special needs. I have one that was, this was a heavy one, cartel drug dealing. So we had one guy that used to be a drug dealer, and he's the instructor of the program. The second, there was the main one, he's a second instructor. And then a student. So we interviewed both a student that kind of got deep into drugs and then kind of got out, and jiu-jitsu kept him away from that. So it's very powerful, interview. So this is all over the country. And then in the interview, he talks about stories of like the instructor is actually a Nova União black belt, Polengi. And you see that he dedicated his life to this guy. You see like kids that he grew up with training jiu-jitsu, because he started training there too. He started that program. Nowadays he runs the program. But I was like, Gustavo, I have kids that used to beat the hell out of me. They're like really good. They got into crime and we couldn't get them. Many of them died. Many of them are in prison. You know what I mean? That happens all the time. So it's very different when you talk about the impact of jiu-jitsu in sports in general, in a community that doesn't have anything, the family cannot pay, and they don't care, like jiu-jitsu, what is jiu-jitsu? What are you going to do? So now, little by little, we try, one of the goals that we have right now is to bring 3 kids and the instructor to spend a week in Arizona to compete in one of my events, and then kind of visit, to kind of have that experience, But of course, it's an expensive trip. You know what I mean? To get four people, 4 international tickets, you know, and then everything else. So we're starting slowly getting the passports. Now we're gonna start looking to visas, because that's the biggest challenge really is the visa.
Visa, yeah.
You know, so with that approved, and then we're gonna hustle to try to raise the money. You know what I mean? But that, it's ready like for them and for the community too, because when they have someone that go travel and they come back telling the stories, and everyone's like, oh wow, I want to be part of this too, you know. And especially when it's not having people going internationally and other parents seeing that there is a way to actually they can actually be, you know, it could be their profession. You know, they could make a living of that. So that's basically what we try to do, present the tools. If it's something we do value our competition team. We do have other activities. We want to try to have like different activities, like, you know, emotional learning classes to like financial education, like everything. Like we just having different classes. It's not about just the jiu-jitsu per se. Jiu-jitsu is just one tool that we're using, and our kind of part of our PE program, let's say. And that's it, man. I gotta have a lot of work ahead. I could stay here on and on, just sharing like wild stories that I witnessed and I've seen. I'm like, phew.
I can imagine.
Yeah, so people don't realize how incredible they have in U.S.
I can imagine. And I'm blessed. Like I said, I keep thanking jiu-jitsu. I thank God, but jiu-jitsu also, because I met you at the Novi Now camp last year. And when you presented this, like, for me, that's my goal one day. You know, I want to help. It doesn't matter whether it's financially or help somebody through jiu-jitsu, whatever it is, always try to give a hand. That's my like motto, is trying to help, because if you want to receive, you have to give first. You have to help first. And so when I saw that, I wanted to bring it to my academy and let everybody at the academy see this project, you know, because you're a special person for doing a project like this, because it's a lot of work, you know. It's a lot of work to, at the end of the day, as an entrepreneur, that there's no money going in your pocket, right?
Well,
this is a
leaving
different
a lot of money out of my pocket.
You know, so this is a different passion. You're coming at it from different angles. So I like being surrounded by people like you, and I really appreciate your time. I really appreciate you doing these things, you know, and we want to do more, right? And I want to show people, like, it doesn't matter how hard you have in life, there's somebody that has it harder. You know, it doesn't matter how hard you think. I can sit here and say how hard my life was, but guess what? Somebody's going to come sit next to me and tell me how hard his life was. And it may be harder, a lot harder. So what are the biggest ways? Because at the end of the day, you have the connection. You are doing this project, but at the end of the day, it's financial.
Yeah.
No matter what, we need to come up with funds, right? So what is the biggest way or the easiest way to connect to you or connect to Jiu-Jitsu Tribe so people can donate?
Well, as far as contacting me, it was just Instagram, Gustavo Dantas, BJJ. You can go there, or, you know, if you Google, gonna find a bunch of, like, you know, ways to contact me. But jiujitsutribe.org, that's we can accept donations from there directly. Some people, we try to promote something called, like, you know, the $5 donation per month. You know, people are like, yeah, $5, but man, if 100 people give $5, man, that's a big help. You know what I mean? So trying to promote, because it doesn't need that much for you to help if everyone does a little bit.
Yeah.
$5 a month, that's okay. You know, no problem. And I feel like we're talking about, like, giving back or helping. I always feel that everyone should have, I'm not saying that it needs to be Jiu-Jitsu Tribe, but I think everyone should have connected to a cause. So, for example, I've been a supporter of Charity Water for 5-6 years. I read this, the book, I forgot the guy's name, Scott something, I forgot his name. But their job is to basically bring water to communities like in Africa. They do, I think, Central America, but mainly like Africa. People don't have water. So they do an incredible work. Browse Foundation is doing a very similar thing what they doing to build wells and stuff like that, and it's just amazing to see the work. So I give $30 a month. I've been doing that for like 5 years. $30 a month is not going, because I see where, like where it's going, what they're building and all that stuff. So it's a cause that I connected when I read the book. I was like, man, it's called Thirst, the name of the book. And I was like, man, this is incredible work, how they started a nonprofit. This is something that I wanted to do. So you should try to look for into something that you connect with, a cause that you can donate $5 a month, 10. Doesn't have to be jiu-jitsu related, but something that you're, see, like they're doing a serious job and you want to be a part of it, So with jiu-jitsu, I think that with Jiu-Jitsu Tribe per se, it'd be like, yeah, you can make a donation. And then even people that want to do a gi drive. That means we want to produce 30 gis for a social project. And then I'll say like, okay, you need to raise this much. And that's it. We get in contact with Browse, we connect, and then we go and produce the gis. That's one way to do it. You know what I mean? If someone wants to do kind of like sometimes I have like an annual party or whatever, like, hey guys, we're going to produce whatever many gis won. I think I had a breakdown for like 25, 50, 75, 100, just whatever, people want, but having a minimum of, so we do the classic, like the one that I was wearing today, the black Browse gi, but with the logo of their program, of the social project, so it kind of give them their identity too. You know what I mean? To have, so it's not just kind of like, oh, we give them a little flimsy. No. This is a legit gi. This is like, and that's something that when Leo, the instructor, he wanted like, oh, I'm doing this here to get a gi drive to do. And then before we did this program, I said like, listen, if someone wants to give, extra gis that they have, awesome, take it. But I would rather them to go through an experience of putting a new gi. Actually, on the Jiu-Jitsu Tribe YouTube, you can find the kids receiving the gis too, which is incredible. Experience
imagine.
of them like looking at a gi, putting like they put in a suit. You know what I mean? They're like, oh my god, For example, this is called Ascending Mind Institute, the one that is in the south of Brazil too. They did they're like my inspiration to do this. It's them. So a lot of the stuff that we try to model is through this program. She's incredible. And then kids from those, they always receive like old clothes, old shoes, everything old, so they're used to that. And then her approach was like, no. Like, we going to do the fundraiser to buy everyone brand new shoes that come in a box. They have the experience of opening a box. You smell the brand new shoes. So you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. That's very different than they always like getting the scarcity mindset. I just get the leftovers. Yeah. So they grow up expecting just the leftover. Like, no, dude, you can get good stuff too. You know what I mean? Of course, and it's not just always like, I want more free stuff. No, not that. But just they go through the experience of like, you can have good stuff too. You know what I mean? So they do such an incredible job. So that is an approach. So that's like, I want to do the same with the gi. Sure, can give them like, beat up gi and stuff. That's okay. We have done gi drives before. But I would rather be like, no, man, let them get the experience of having a legit gi, a gi that they would never buy. No way. You'll never be able to buy a gi like that. Right. So when they see it, and then either other projects that I go to a tournament, they see them like all the uniform, the stuff, like wow, like all decked out and stuff. So it's really cool. You know what I mean? So it's awesome to see their reaction. Mm-hmm. And look how crazy the Copa Jiu-Jitsu Tribe. It's pretty affordable. We put very low. We got a partnership with. The same company, Metal Vest, they're the same company makes the IBJJF medals. They make the my medals too. So they're great supporters, and they charge us just cost for the medal, because those kids, they don't have money to go to a tournament to to have nice medals, IBJJF or whatever. So now they have access to like quality medal, and included every kid basically, because the tournament's like 17 under 18. So everyone, we offer a free meal to everyone. So it's crazy, but like the amount, like the feedback that I got, from the teachers and all the stuff, how big was having the meal. Like it's just mind blowing. They're excited to get to compete, and they have like a good quality meal. So they're super excited because of that. So it's a huge part of the program. This time now we've had almost 400 kids in one day. You know what I mean? And having access to that and competing and having a cool medal, you know, so all that stuff. So we do that twice a year. Eventually we want more, but right now this is what they do, and they get super excited for everything. So we've been Jiu-Jitsu Tribe invested in like in having a nice like equipment for it. So all the stuff in the, if you look in the Instagram Jiu-Jitsu Tribe, there's stuff from, you know, from the tournament. YouTube, we got stuff there too. So it's really cool to see, you know, they having the experience, like a nice, it's not about just winning, but like, no, it's more like that experience. And see that they want more. They want to try to travel. They want to try, they hear that you can go to a different country and all that kind of stuff. You know what I mean?
Professor, what you're doing is very big. And I wanted, like I said, to get you on here so all the viewers can see this and learn about this. And that's why we should be more grateful, man. Be more grateful and do things such as you're doing. You know, we need to give back and give back as much as possible because we're here for a short time, you know?
Yes, sir.
So
that's for sure.
To hear that the kids are not even over here, that you get a medal, that people are going to the medal, right? Participation medal, and we're happy. You know, it's 3-man division, you get a medal. But to hear that they're happy over the meal, that's, you know, that touches your heart.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's great to see that you're doing that. And our goal, like I said, is we're going to push it and we're going to support it as much as possible. For everybody listening, guys, jiujitsutribe.org. jiujitsutribe.org or at Gustavo Dantas BJJ. On Instagram, shoot them a message. You can learn more about this. YouTube, Jiu-Jitsu Tribe. To learn more about this, please support it. And Professor, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for your time. We ended up talking longer than we expected.
I appreciate the opportunity. And we could keep going on and on because there's a lot of different topics we could go.
I'm super grateful for you. Super grateful for the opportunity. I appreciate it. And you guys, give this a listen. This is my favorite one. And Professor Gustavo Dantas, episode 16, guys. Have a good one. Peace out.